I'm hoping that Alasia would share some words of wisdom that will make you consider about entering civic society or the political arena.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to start off by congratulating Marcia Dixon for the first ever Destined to Soar conference. And I thought that how I would approach this would be to share my story and my journey of how I got involved in politics and public life, and hoping that that would inspire you and also spark some ideas in your mind. And I know that I'm standing between you and lunch, so I won't take too much of your time. So I developed an interest in politics from an early age as a teenager, and it began when I was at Leighton Sixth Form College, and we were doing a module in politics, and it just sparked my interest. I didn't come from a family that were interested in politics or had any political connections. So my interest was sparked from that, and I decided to study politics and sociology at Brunel University. I actually found the degree quite boring because it was really historical and irrelevant. But through my studies, I started to get involved in extracurricular activities. And so I got involved in the African Caribbean Student Society. And then I went on to do a master's degree at Birkbeck College, part of the University of London, and continued my extracurricular activities. And I was elected the first black female vice president of the Students' Union, and got involved in the National Union of Students, the NUS, with their Black Students campaign. And I led a campaign about making marking anonymous, because there was some research at the time that showed that black students were being marked down in relation to their white counterparts. And I wrote to members of Parliament, and I wrote to members of the House of Lords, and they were responding to me. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. If you have an issue and you write to somebody, they could get back to you. And so that also started my journey. I lived in Plaistow for 20 years and got involved in the local community and joined up with an organisation called Operation Black Vote. Some of you may have heard of Simon Woolley, who is been elevated many times over the past few months. And so in 2006, I applied to be a part of their MP shadowing scheme. And this is a scheme that they run every year, where you can work and shadow and sort of do an internship with members of Parliament. And so I applied and I was successful, and I was given Sadiq Khan as a mentor, and he was a new member of Parliament at the time. And I was really blessed to have him as a mentor, actually, because he was just really open. He took me to all of his meetings. He was having meetings he was Transport Minister at the time, and he was having meetings with the chief executives of transport companies, and he would take me to those meetings and said, this is my intern, and I want her to see everything that I'm doing. He took me to Tooting, which is where he was an MP, to show me his work there, and he was really open. And as I was in the Houses of Parliament one day, I bumped into Diane Abbott's PA, and I was quite shy at the time. I am naturally quite a reserved person, but I thought, well, this is my moment, this is my opportunity. She was the first black female MP. And so I said, well, I'm on this scheme with Operation Black Vote. Can I also work with Diane Abbott? And she said, yes. So I then subsequently went on to do an internship with Diane Abbott. And again, I was really fortunate because she had some really good conversations with me about the struggles that she had had over the years. I then moved to Dagenham in 2007, and I was kind of a little bit lost at first because all of my connections were in Newham, my family, my community relationships, my relationships with the Labour Party, which I joined in 2006. But I got a letter through my door inviting me to a Labour Party meeting, and I went along, and it was quite a sad atmosphere, and the room was very dark as well, which didn't help. And what had happened was the year before, in 2006, in Barking and Dagenham, there were 12 BNP, British National Party councillors, elected onto the council, so they were the official opposition. And so this is why the Labour Party was so dark at the time. And there were a number of reasons why that had happened: the fast pace of change to the borough, access to housing, and also the Labour Party, I think, taking things for granted that they would always win elections. And in that moment and in that meeting of everybody being so downcast, I did see an opportunity, because when you're down, the only way is up. So I started to connect with the people there, started to work alongside them. We started to talk to our local residents, and find out what the issues and the problems were. And the local council elections were coming up in 2010, and I was asked to put myself forward. And I thought, oh, okay. Never really thought about it before, but decided to do it. And just to sort of highlight the power of encouragement, and I've had a lot of encouragement along the way. So I stood, and the ward, each borough is broken up into wards. So they will have a set of councillors, and each ward generally will have 3 councillors per ward. So the ward where I was standing had 2 BNP councillors. One was the London Regional Coordinator of the British National Party. So I was selected as a candidate, and then I started to reflect on where I was standing as a black female. There were no black female councillors on Barking and Dagenham Council at the time, and I started to doubt my capabilities, and I said, is this the right ward for me to stand in? Is this the right area? Can I really do this? But we decided to pursue it. Collectively, we knocked on 20,000 doors over 3 years to gain the concerns of the residents and work with them to resolve those concerns. And through that work, we were able to kick all of the BNP councillors off in 2010. And we've maintained that work since, because, as I said, we cannot take things for granted. And I was one of the first of 3 black women to be on the council, and the youngest female at the time. And following on from that, I took up a number of roles, got stuck into various issues. And one of the more interesting roles was chair of the planning committee. And when I was first asked to go onto the planning committee, I thought, well, it's not an area that I have any interest in or any knowledge in, so I was a bit resistant at the time. But I did go on, and then eventually was the chair for 3 years. And I learnt so much, because as chair of the planning committee, you, I guess, have the authority about all of the development and the regeneration. So all these supermarkets and all these housing estates that you see going up, it's that committee that sort of governs that. And one of the things that me and one of my fellow black female councillors did was start to work with the black churches in developing some guidelines for the council, because we found that they were disproportionately turning down applications from black majority churches in the area. And so one of the things, and this goes back to what Marcia says of being at the table, was that we were able to develop those guidelines for the council and help support our black churches. And we also worked with our black churches in how they were presenting their applications to the council, because the presentation at times wasn't always the best. In 2014, 5 years ago, I stood to be a member of the European Parliament. I was the only black female candidate out of all the political parties. I didn't win. I stood again in May and didn't win again. But through those elections, I've learned so much. And I remember when I didn't win 5 years ago, I thought, well, I'd run a campaign for 13 months talking about Europe, and I never wanted to hear the word Europe again. And somebody told me about this European committee called the Committee of the Regions, and basically they champion local and regional government in Europe. And I said, well, I've run this campaign for 13 months. I don't want to hear anything about Europe again. But a number of people called me and encouraged, and through that encouragement, I then decided to put myself forward for this committee. I was accepted. And when I was accepted, I got a notification that the Prime Minister, who was at the time David Cameron, had to appoint me. And I said, is this what I was turning down? The Prime Minister has to appoint me to the committee. And so I've been doing that for 5 years. And in 2017, I was elected the Deputy Leader of the UK delegation, the first black female Deputy Leader. And last year, I was privileged to be the civic mayor of Barking and Dagenham, the first black Caribbean female. And through that role, it's a prestigious role, but I wanted to ensure that I left a legacy. And so one of my themes was no one left behind. So one of the things that I did throughout the year was reach out to all those community groups, all those charity groups that feel sort of unheard of. And I instituted a celebration of the Windrush generation, and that is something that is being celebrated every year now, which was never done before. Through my journey, how I've coped has been through having those friendships, support from my family and friends, and also many prayers. When I was the mayor, I had churches all across the borough praying for me every month. And I really felt the power of those prayers, because as a black woman, you know, you can be a role model, but you can be hated. And I felt both sides of that. But those prayers of the churches in the borough and beyond really carried me through. So I just wanted to end by saying, well, how can you impact on your community? Well, churches, all of us, or a lot of us will be a part of a church. And I would really encourage us not to be just a church here, but reach out, have your programs that reach out to the homeless, that have your food banks, that provide skills and training, reach out to the local community. Think about maybe becoming a school governor. I don't have any children, but I'm a school governor, and you can influence so much of what your school is doing in terms of supporting children with special needs, in terms of how they're developing the curriculum, in terms of how they're dealing with the many challenges that they face. Think about maybe becoming a magistrate. We need more black magistrates. We heard Marcia talking about what happens in America there. And I'll just end on that, do think about how you can impact on your community. There's a saying that if you're not sitting at the table, you're on the menu. So let us not be eaten alive. Let us be there. Let us have an influence. Let us have a voice. And if you want to know more, you can get my book, Sanchia Alasia, The Untold Story. Thank you.